So this is on Bryant Street between 19th and, no, 18th and 17th. There's a little bit of a camp there, but there's been a much bigger camp there in recent times. So this is New Hampshire. This is Hampshire Street, coming down from 17th to 18th Street. Pretty big camp. I mean, the police do come in from time to time and route these places, but then of course the people start infiltrating back. It's just kind of a game. So I'm coming up on an area where there has been a big encampment that was cleared out, and what we're going to see here is that they have put out some porta potties and hand washing stations for the people who are no longer here. So here's another big camp down along Florida, I think. This wasn't here a while back. We're going to pass by an RV vehicle right here. And this is something else we've been seeing for a long time too, is basically people living in RVs, some of them quite expensive. You know, it's an alternative to some of the apartments in San Francisco. I mean, there are some people here making pretty good money by some people's standards, like, you know, upwards of $100,000 a year, who may be living in vehicles because it's much cheaper than having an apartment. And here we have a camp that is just south of the SPCA. You know, the tents keep getting bigger, and you'll see somebody, you know, set up a tent and gradually accumulate more and more stuff around it as time goes on. And here we have a very big camp, which is down in back of the Best Buy on Harrison in San Francisco. More honey buckets and things, trying to make life a little less miserable for these people. This is like church. It's like 16th and whatever it is, Dolores. Now up here, you may not be able to see them, but all those, you know, street things there and those little blue signs, this is kind of like a not in my backyard thing, where apparently there were quite a few homeless people here, but they've put up all these barriers and signs, and the signs say, you should find a safer place to sleep. More outside dining. So here we have some downtown views. You know, basically on normal times, these streets would be full of people going to work. Now, just in a second here, we're going to go past a site where they are building a whole bunch of apartments. This is going on all over the city. There are thousands of apartments that have either been built or are being built. And the problem I see is that, you know, there aren't going to be any tenants for these things, so they're just going to all go empty. Here we see some boarding up. This is near Van Ness and Market. But yeah, so here we're going down Market Street. Really is the main commerce thoroughfare in San Francisco. We're about to go by Uber here. Not much going on there. So yeah, this whole street is just pretty much empty of people, and normally it would be full of people. Here we have a store, big store front, all papered over. That means they're gone. This is Dolby Laboratories we're going by, nobody there. Going by an apartment complex called Trinity Place. There again, nearing completion, but not nearing having people living in it. Correction, I just saw two tourists at a place where the cable car meets Market Street. And that's about it. But you know, all closed, all closed, all closed. It's you know, this is 9:20 on a Wednesday morning, and this is what it's like. There should just be mobs of people everywhere. One tourist, I don't know, probably a local. Here's a place where Wells Fargo has a lot of offices. Typically, it's all closed. More boarded up stores. Of course, some of this is left over from the demonstrations and riots that we did have. So here we have some kind of like luxury stores that of course were burned out by all of this. Just a minute ago I went by a BART station that was all locked up. And you know, the BART's sort of running, but I think the reason behind that is that for a long time it's been very common for BART, it's been very common for homeless people to take shelter in the BART stations where it's warm, basically. Here's a place where they're doing renovation on an older building. This is kind of one of those projects where these days I just scratch my head and say, why haven't they stopped doing this? You know, there's not going to be any tenants for this, so why are they spending money? But of course developers have to develop to make a living. And but like one little factoid about this is I recently saw that Pinterest had paid $90 million to get out from under a lease on a building that had not yet been built. This is the Federal Reserve Bank. I'm pretty sure this is the Gap headquarters. No signs of life here. And Gap, you may have heard, has closed hundreds of stores, including all of their stores in San Francisco. No Gap. Well, there's a big Gap opening up here, I guess. Here we're at Charles Schwab in spite of the market. going up. Charles Schwab is empty here, and I think in this building they have a lot of offices as well. And here we're going to go by the Millennium Tower in San Francisco, which is infamous for the fact that it is leaning over because of the way the foundation was built, and nobody will sign off on a fix for it. And if you look carefully, go back and look at this film, you can see that the building was tilted in relationship to the sidewalk as we went by. Basically, you know, people have spent millions of dollars renovating apartments in this building only to have their market value go to zero. And we're going to pass around the corner here in a second and see the new transport terminal. And this was the reason why the tower is leaning, in that in the construction of this new center, they pumped so much water out of the the sand underneath this building that it caused the tower to tilt. And there are buildings in this neighborhood where they've driven piles 250 feet down to contact bedrock. The people who built this Millennium Tower thought that they could just kind of float it on the sand, and they built this kind of box foundation without accounting for the fact that some of the water might be removed. Yeah, and speaking of the streets of San Francisco, I mean, it's been a long time since I've driven around down here, and what I gotta say is that the streets of San Francisco suck. I mean, there's been so much neglect. It's like driving down a dirt road in the country. So here we have a camp at Bonham's. This is on San Bruno and 19th Street. Pretty big camp. So here's something you see, people parking pretty big RVs around. Almost hard to call them homeless, they've just got a mobile home. Another old mobile home. And a lot of these cars are just people parked in their cars. You see often very nice cars, new generation cars with people just living in them. They've just got to the point they can't have their apartment anymore, just forced out the bottom. Okay, now we're coming up on the big city testing center here. I rarely see anybody here. And, I hear the mayor says she's going to spend $450 million on COVID next year. I can't imagine what she's going to do with that money. They've talked about putting 1,000 people for contact tracing and God knows what all. This has just become a big slush fund for a bunch of people in the so-called health field. They're just, it's kind of like their new cash cow. It's kind of like global warming, and some of that has failed. And now they're coming back with this new idea that they're going to get us all excited about. So this is like Mariposa and Carolina. Lots of vehicles down here. Tired living in the limo. This is near Goodwill. This is like the College of Art. So this is all RVs here. This is kind of like north of Lowe's.